Okay, Stand-Up Accelerator Workshop recap number 45. We're almost to July, so we're 6 months into the new year of this. So this was week 26 of the new year, week 45 total. We had 30 workshoppers this week down at the creek. We're getting close to 100 degrees in Austin, so we're heating up the comedy. We start off in the career section talking a little bit about Nate Bargatze because he's still in a little bit of hot water from going to the UFC fight at the White House and associating himself with Trump and some of the MAGA people. It's kind of tough when you sell yourself as the ultimate white, well, nice guy comic, nice and white, white and nice, nice guy comic. And then you go around and start associating yourself with people who are more radical than you, can do some damage to your public character. So it's something to always think about as a stand-up. Like even if you're a deviant, like Louis C.K., who talks about horrible stuff all the time, but then if you actually do horrible stuff, like sexually pressuring and imposing upon female comics, yeah, that's different. It costs Louis C.K. a lot of money. We'll see what it costs Nate Bargatze. So far, it's not nearly as damaging. Who knows? We then jumped back into talking about the topic for the last week and this week and next week, which is stand-up and stories. Like, how do you turn stories into script that's good enough to actually tell on a stand-up stage? Last week, as a quick review, we did plot where we sort of broke out that you have an opening that introduces the story and makes people want to hear it. Then you have middle act where it's three beats, three interesting things, and then you close out with something super powerful that sort of wraps up the story, or at least moves you to the next part. This week we talked about character and details, which are two of the dominant things that decide whether you are telling an interesting story in general in life and whether it's worthy to get up on a stand-up stage. Have you created really great characters yet? And have you given us details about them? So for character, I started out by talking about that if you actually look at stand-up, a huge percentage of it is talking about people and talking about yourself as a character. Again, Louis C.K. character, Nate Bargatze total character. And if you create mysterious, odd, quirky, funny, intense, powerful characters around yourself and around the people you talk about, then it makes it worth listening to. And you can do this a lot. If you get really strong at creating characters, entertainment loves this. Professional entertainment, if you want to make a living, get really, really familiar with creating great characters. As an example of this, Russ, it was a guy visiting from Kentucky, said he's a teacher here for a conference in San Antonio, but was hanging out in Austin a little bit because he does stand-up as well. Says he has a 12-year-old autistic son who likes to motorboat people. By people, I assume that's women. Which, like he just randomly walks up to strangers and motorboats them. That's an interesting thing. It's a character that people can sort of see quickly and something that you might remember and is worth talking about in stand-up. Moving to the second part, so you've got a character, but now you have to add detail to make that character actually interesting. And for Russ's son, there are lots of things that we could add in more. He said his name. I can't remember what it was, but has an interesting name. But he's 12. He's already 5'9", so he's a tall kid, which, again, looks like a teenager coming up to do this to you. He does this everywhere. He has no restrictions with who or where. And his school has had to make it a priority to help him not do that this year. So details are the secret of all great storytelling. I talked about this in the comedy writing workshop on Saturday, that the art of details, knowing how much detail to give to bring these things alive so that the audience can re-experience them the way you experience them. And that can be details about their appearance, their personality, exact dialogue they said, exact actions they took. All these things, the more specific you are, the more that the audience can actually instantly, vicariously see and think about this person that you're talking about. So basically, generic words and mid-level descriptions like he was young or he's tall, things like that are not descriptive enough. They're mid-level descriptions. You need very specific descriptions. So work on that. We then broke into writing teams. Everybody pitched a character to each other and got and practiced developing the details. So asking questions is the best way to develop details. And so that's what people were doing. Then the last part, we started in the onstage part of the workshop. I started by telling a story that I know that was told to me about Jeffrey Dahmer's younger brother. And because Dahmer is such a dominant character, he's been dead for 30 years. People still talk about him. They're still making shows about him. Even people around him become very, very interesting characters. So I've got a story about that, and I'll tell that later, probably next week. Maybe I'll do it as a short because I'm turning it into stand-up as an example of how you do this. We then had a series of people go on stage, talk about a character, and the audience became the writing staff to try to punch this up with details. And again, the easiest way to do that is by asking questions. And once you understand what the audience wants to know, then you, as the writer, need to go back in and write those things. So we had somebody talk about a coach that he had in high school who had inappropriate inspirational sayings, a stepmother who made Filipino spaghetti, which became a character, like what is Filipino spaghetti? And a son-in-law who's a mathlete. We had a bunch of different characters brought up. Almost all of them suffered from not enough detail. And it's one of those things, again, once you learn it, you need to be able to submerge it into your skill set. But once you do that, you become a really much more interesting storyteller. And when you do it on purpose and you really densify it, then it becomes worthy of taking on a stand-up stage. And I ended up by talking again about like two things, like pedagogically, how do you get this stuff from me just talking about it cognitively and you understanding it to submerge it into your skill set and your intuition and your consciousness so that you can start using it quickly in creative work. And that's sort of, I guess it's a question everybody has to answer themselves. Obviously, you can practice it. You can take it, and think about it a lot. You can read more. You can talk to people about it. Anything you can do to get it deeper into your brain so that your brain will just start using that technology of character creation. And I also point out again that if you can do this, you can make a living in Hollywood because almost all of Hollywood is about bringing characters to life. From actors, directors, writers, everybody is trying to create interesting new characters that can outlive even the series or the story that you're telling. And people find it so compelling that they'll come back and watch it again. More stories about that character. Next week, we're going to try to raise the bar. So everybody is supposed to bring in at least one character that they develop during the week and they put a lot of effort into to try to add in detail, to try to make this character super interesting, to try to turn it into stand-up. So hopefully, usually I don't give people like solid homework, but like I try to raise the bar a little bit and say, let's really work on this one. And everybody come in, you've got an opportunity to impress everybody else in the workshop with the character you create. You've got the opportunity to impress me. And when you impress people in entertainment, they do things for you. So take this opportunity to create a super character, bring it in, work on it during the week, add the details, make it really interesting and funny, and then bring it in to the workshop next week. And I will see you there with all your characters, and I'm going to tell my Jeffrey Dahmer brother story.